Hey everyone! Today we're going to be opening up the Fairy Kingdom Mystery Kit and making two projects with it. The first is a bracelet design using the fabulous Pearlesque chain, Hollow Mesh, and then the second project is going to be a beautiful necklace using the Pearlesque Capture Chain. And this particular Pearlesque chain was specifically procured just for this kit, so it's extra super special. Now, if you're wondering where you can find these supplies, you'll want to definitely check out the video description. Welcome to my channel. My name is Nilay Patel. I'm the owner, designer, and educator here at SilverSilk and more. Now, before we get started with our tutorial for this Tuesday tutorial, you'll want to definitely destroy that subscribe button. And if you're looking for even more inspiration for using SilverSilk, you can check out and follow my Instagram. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and start tonight's project. With any SilverSilk project, I like to have a specific tool set that I like to use for all of my projects. So for this tutorial, I thought I would go ahead and cover what my preferred tool list is for using in all of my tutorial videos. So the first is a really good pair of cutters. I use these for both SilverSilk and for beading wire and for craft wire, so I guess that's really three things. And these are from Lindstrom, and I've had these for about, like maybe 7 years, and they cut time and time again without any problems. I'm amazed with how great the quality is, and I recommend having a great pair of cutters in your stash of tools. The next is a set of crimpers. I've got both the magical crimpers, which makes crimps look like little spacers or beads after you're done with the crimping process. I've also got a standard pair of crimp pliers that makes a folded crimp. These are from Zoron, and then these actually got from Softflex Wire or Softflex Company. So I like using the two different pairs depending on the situation, and I recommend having those in your tool set. The next is a pair of wide, flat nose pliers that are dipped in Tool Magic. These, I cannot preach enough of how great they are to have. They definitely don't cause any wear and tear on any of my findings, custom-made findings for SilverSilk. And then they also are great to grip the finding with. And so the wide nose especially makes it perfect for all of the different size of findings that I have. So I recommend having this in your tool set as well. And this is from Weber's, one of my favorite tool companies. From them as well, I've got a pair of round nose pliers. And lastly, a pair of chain nose pliers. Pretty standard set there. These are all from the Pro line at Weber's, by the way. I also have got a pair of 1mm hole punch pliers that I'll be using for tonight. You don't have to have these in your tool set as well. This is just sort of a nice to have item because I'm going to be using a vintage charm tonight. This is going to be perfect for making a quick little hole to attach things to. You can also use a beading awl if you don't have one of these. That's great for piercing holes, whether it be leather or metal. And so that's, I think, a great thing to have. And then lastly, I like to have a skewer on hand. This is a very round, very sanded down skewer, super smooth. Its width of its diameter is about 5mm, well, probably about 4.5 to 5mm, depending on how far you go down into the skewer. This happens to be actually a chopstick more so than a skewer. So use whatever you can, but this will be used to open up the hollow mesh. I've even been told that a knitting needle would work perfectly for opening up hollow mesh, and making sure that you do have a very thick needle that you can slide the mesh down into is perfect. So let me get those tools out of the way, and we're going to talk about the mystery kit real quickly before I step into the projects. If you grabbed the Fairy Kingdom Mystery Kit, this is what you have received. You get a starter set of some beautiful hollow mesh. This is the pearlesque hollow mesh, in fact, super gorgeous stuff that we're going to be using tonight, and I'm going to show you how to use it. So if you're a real beginner to what SilverSilk is, this is a type of chain that I carry. You can fill it with beads. It's essentially just a knitted hollow tube that's about 4.5 millimeters in width, and you can stuff up to 4 millimeter beads inside of it, as we'll be doing today. You also get, as I mentioned earlier, the pearlesque chain that I made specifically for this kit, and it is absolutely stunning if you're a pink lover, which I have never claimed to really love pink, but I definitely have a deep appreciation of it now, especially experiencing making the chain myself, and it's going to be so much fun to use today in today's project. So I'm excited about that. You also have received this little packet of beads and charms and bindings. So in here, you're going to get this strand of 2 millimeter glass beads. This is actually what we're going to be used to stuff that hollow mesh. And then you get a pair of double strand end caps, which look like this. This is going to be used for our necklace, in fact. So you'll need to have those handy. And then you get a series of charms and some beads. So the charms are actually from Vintage. You get a little fairy charm that looks like this. Isn't she just sweet? And then you're going to get this really cool leaf that we're actually going to hole punch and add beads onto. And then you get a couple of smaller links that you can use to design whatever you like, whether it be earrings or attachments as components. It's totally up to you and your imagination. And then you just get, as I mentioned, a set of beads that came with the kit as well. So for our bracelet, you're going to need to dig out these particular little end caps. These are actually acrylic beads, or I believe they might be either acrylic or lucite. And more so than beads, I kind of think that they're cones because they have a little hole at the top here. So these are going to be great for just putting at the ends of our bracelet, for our hollow mesh bracelet. And then we're going to be using the charm, so we'll get that little girl out. And then with those beads that I talked to you about earlier, I went ahead and pre-strung them onto some beading wire, which brings me to my next point. For this kit and assembling the pieces that I'm going to be making today for you, you're going to need a couple extra materials. The first one is some Softflex beading wire. I'm using yellow because if we're going to visit the fairy kingdom, we're going to need some color, and this design just begs for colors. And I wanted to pick up the yellow one because it just appealed to me. You certainly don't have to. You can use any sort of regular silver colored beading wire. That is absolutely perfectly fine. I just chose to do it on the yellow because I was feeling happy. And then the other item that you'll need for a later project, our necklace, is going to be 26 gauge craft wire in antique copper. So just have that set aside. I went ahead and cut a foot of my beading wire, and I have that now pre-strung with my crystals, as I mentioned. I also have some size 2 millimeter crimps in copper color that are also from Softflex wire. I trust their crimps wholeheartedly. They are double the wall thickness of regular crimps that you might see that are of a different brand. And they don't have a seam, so you know that your crimp is going to be nice and secure when you get it all nice and crimped later in your design. So you're actually going to need 3 crimps for this project. I have a crimp here already pre-strung on my beading wire, and I'm going to go with my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to just press down on it. I'm not going to necessarily, you don't have to create a folded crimp. You can absolutely do that. This is really just to stop the beads at one end whenever I'm pushing the hollow mesh through with my beading wire here, so that it kind of just stops and collects at the end here without any problems. So as I mentioned, I think I had a little piece of hollow mesh here already kind of cut to the length that I need. For a give or take about a 7-inch bracelet, I'm using as much hollow mesh, maybe an inch or two more, just to be on the safe side. And so I went ahead and pre-cut the length that fits around my wrist comfortably. So that might be something y'all want to think about whenever you're making your bracelets. And then I'm going to string on another crimp, and I'm actually just going to make a very loose loop here at one end. This is going to help slide my beading wire and all of this stuff right through the hollow mesh without any problems. As you can see, it's not getting stuck on anything. It's moving nice and slick right through that hollow mesh. And my beads are not coming out on the other side because I have it crimped in place. Okay, that looks wonderful. Now that I have it here on this one end, I can actually either pinch it shut, or if I wanted to be extra secure, I can string right through some of those open knits. And what this does is it sort of grasps on right at that crimp point, and it grapples to it so that it's not going to move and shift even after you get the cone back on. Alrighty. So now you'll just string your beautiful little cone on. We could even go a step further and we can actually decorate with some beads. I think I had some here earlier, but I can dig through my bag here. There's a couple of beads in your little kit that you've picked up, hopefully, that you've managed to pick up. And then, you know, you could just kind of string those on and just to add a little decorative touch to your design. And I'm going to go ahead and, since my one side has those crimped beads, it can't really slide or move, I'm going to go ahead and crimp down on that one side and make my bracelet ready for the clasp. And I was actually looking for, oh, there it is. Okay, there we go. I can actually, at this point, even attach my jump ring. So let me go ahead and do that. Perfect. So to do this, you want to string on your crimp and then go back through your crimp. And then just try and secure that nice little loop to be pretty decent size. I like to have maybe about a 2 to 3 millimeter loop. If you require the assistance of your pliers, you can absolutely pick those up and just kind of pull on it ever so gently there. See, that's a really perfect loop size. And so I'm just going to do a standard crimp today. So I'll just string it into my, or pass it into my plier, make my V-shaped notch in there in my crimp, and then just kind of squeeze it in half so I get a nice petite folded crimp there with a little pop of yellow in that loop, which I find perfect, by the way. So that's one side crimped and done, and now we'll just do the other. So I can go ahead and loosen up my loop and move everything down. And I'm going to actually remove my crimp altogether. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to go ahead and just string it right through those knits just a couple times, just to get it secure so that I know later it's not going to shift and move on me. This is probably one of my handiest tips that I've ever taught. There we go. Brilliant. Brilliant. You can absolutely run this through your bead draw plate. It's not really a bead draw plate, I guess. Just your draw plate, and to make the diameter size smaller of that chain and really adhere it to those beads. I actually like this loose look. I like the dimension that it gives me and some fluidity, and I could tell that there's beads on the inside. So I'm going to leave it the width that it is. Okay, same process here. I'm just going to go ahead and string my crimp, or excuse me, my cone, my bead, and then my crimp in through. And then I'm going to go back through, I'm going to string on the second half of my clasp. And then go through the crimp. Okay, and then I'm just going to nice and tighten everything here. I'm probably going to need my pliers to do this, so let's get it all nice and tight there. You want to make sure that when you put your bracelet down that it's got enough room to kind of be nice and fluid. Once you've done that and it looks really good, go ahead and crimp it as such. And man, I do love these pliers. They are so, so handy. And really, because like, look at the size of that. That can squeeze into almost anywhere. So I recommend the Zoran pair of pliers to do this. Ah, brilliant. Oh, you know what we're missing? Well, it can't be the fairy kingdom without our fairy. So we got to have our fairy in there. And I had a jump ring here somewhere. But you know what? I think I can actually attach it to this already. Okay. Cannot have our fairy kingdom without our fairy. There we go. Okay, so just a sweet little charm. You could add more tassels, more beads onto it from the kit. But this one is ready to go, and we can start our second project now. Okay, as I mentioned, I'm going to be using the pink chain, and it's going to require multiple parts to assemble this design because it is rather simple in its look, but complicated to put together. It requires a lot of layering to happen. So I'm going to clear out some of the stuff that's on my table, and I'm going to show you the build from the bottom, no, from the pendant down. The first thing you want to do is just cut a nice, maybe like 3 to 4 inch, no, that might be too much. Let's say 2 to 3 inches of the pink chain. And you're gonna wanna go ahead and crimp it inside of your double strand end cap. If you're not familiar with this crimping process, don't worry, I'm gonna teach you on the bigger necklace rope part of how to crimp it because we're actually gonna make a back embellishment as well. So stay tuned for that, okay? So I have that part done. This is actually gonna face up and then this is gonna face down just to get my pendant started. The second part is actually making a little floral component. This is actually pretty fun. I have no idea where I came up with it. It was just one of those spur of the moments, like I'm going to layer some flowers together and see what happens. So what you're gonna need are a few pieces of wire that are about 4 inches in length. So remember, this is the 26 gauge craft wire by Softflex Company in antique copper. Okay, I'm going to start with my first strand, and I'm going to string on a little pink crystal that was included in your kit. Because my craft wire is so soft, I can definitely bend it in half, get it really nice and tight around that crystal. So I'm bending it on that facet, as you can see, making sort of what resembles a little head pin. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick on my sequin. I guess it wouldn't be stick, I'm gonna string it on. And then I'm gonna string on my big flower here. I guess it's big, but it's bigger than the sequin. It's a little flower overall. You know what though, I actually missed a step, I'm so sorry. Even before I do that, I can actually leave it kind of loose before tightening it. And what I'm gonna do is I need an anchor on both the bottom and the top of this flower. So I'm gonna go ahead and string on another piece of wire right through the flower there. And I'm going to actually just come up through the top part. It's a 6-petal flower. So I'm gonna go between 3 petals here on either end. So I'm gonna do that to one end. And then do the same on the other. Now this is fairly complex, I understand, in its construction, so just hang with me, you guys. I know you can do it. If I can do this, I know you definitely can. All right, I'm gonna just now go ahead and tighten up everything. So I have my head pin kind of sticking out in the back there, I'm going to split my wires so that now I have 3 pieces of wire on either side. So this is going to help make my simple loop, or excuse me, my wire wrap loop on either end. And I can now kind of gather everything up, string on a little pink bead. And I'm going to require the assistance of my pliers yet again, and I'm just going to kind of squeeze everything down toward that flower. There we go. I'm going to do this to both sides. And I guess I had intended on using another sequin inside of my design here. You can layer them as complex or as simple as you want. You could even just do the flower, acrylic flower by itself. But I think getting on the extra added layers is always fun to do. So I'll leave that to your guys' imagination on how you want to do that. Okay, this looks really good. So now I've got basically the beginnings of a connector piece here, and now all I have to do is just make my loops on either end. So I'm going to grab my round nose pliers right here. And I'm basically going to just make a nice messy loop. So I'm going to go ahead and create a 90-degree angle just by turning it and then flipping the wire over. Okay, I'm going to switch sides of my pliers, and then I'm just going to continue to make my wire loop all the way around just like that. If it's not perfect, don't worry. You can always go back and reshape it. If you wanted to just use a couple pieces of wire, you can absolutely do that. I just feel I want more security in my design, so I'm going to use all 3 wires at once. Okay, I'm just going to open it up a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and slide in my double strand end cap to all 3 wires. This might be a little tricky, trying to get all 3 of them in at once, but you can do it. One thing to note is I want my logo side to face up, so I have that backwards, it looks like. There we go. Okay, now that that's facing the right direction, I can actually go ahead and take the rest of my wire here, grasp it as best as you can on that one end, and then just kind of work my way around to get myself a nice, really fat little knotted wire end there. And I love texture, so I am not going to be afraid of really building that up. Okay, if there's little pieces sticking out, you can absolutely go back in with your cutters and just kind of trim them off and do your best to tuck those little extra pieces in. There we go. Boom. Moving right along here. So we're going to do the same thing on the other end here. Okay. Bend it back toward you. Work that around. Use your pliers like a mandrel. You're forming around those pliers, making sure that your wrist, your hand, your motions are comfortable to what feels good to you, while still being able to achieve a nice round loop. If it does not feel comfortable for you, you're probably not doing it right. Here we go. All right. And we're just going to get a nice big O loop here, or a big O knotted wire wrapping here with our loop. Again, just tucking in those pieces as best as you can. If you kind of press hard enough, they actually work into the knot that you've made, and then they just like really disappear, and you don't have to worry about it coming apart or anything like that. So that's good. I think the only critique I would give myself is if I could move that bead up at the top a little bit closer to my petal. But otherwise, that's not bad. I also missed a sequin, so that is something that I would probably also go back and redo. That's okay, though. Oh, you know what? Here's the example piece. I just had it sitting out, and you can see that this is where I layered 2 pieces of sequin And then this is just with the one. So you can see how much dimensionality the extra sequin does add to your design. So now we're actually going to be making this component here with our vintage leaf charm. The first thing I want to do is make my little hole punch here. And I actually made 2 of them, it looks like. Gonna have to remember back on my tutorials, back on my own tutorials. But we're gonna make 2 holes on the bottom of our leaf there. So I'm gonna grab my punchers. Again, this is the 1.5 millimeter punch. And I'm just gonna go in about maybe 4 millimeters from the end. Give it a punch. And then down toward the bottom. Give it a punch. And I've got 2 holes that are ready to go. What you can do at this point also is to kind of give your leaf a little bit more dimension. To do that, you can grab your chain nose pliers, or because I want to protect my finding, or my vintage leaf charm, I'm going to grab it with my Tool Magic coated pliers. This will prevent any abrasion from happening. I'm just going to bend it in sort of a V shape. This is, to me, it just feels more natural. It feels more leaf-like. The leaf is actually going to hug those beads that are going to sit inside of it. Okay, so you can see that it's a lot less flat now, and it's going to cup those beads really nicely. So I'm going to grab some more wire. I'm using close to about 1 foot, maybe less, probably closer to about 8 or 9 inches of the same 26 gauge wire. I also went ahead and cut a 4-inch length that you'll need for the top part. So have those 2 pieces set aside. With your longer piece, go ahead and string through, I think I did the back side up, so that you've got a shorter length on the front side here, close to maybe about 3 inches. And then I'm going to take my shorter piece of wire. I'm going to actually wrap it once, just like that. So I wrapped it right around my stem there. And I'm actually going to go back through that hole. Okay, so now I have it nice and secure there, and then I'm ready to put my beads on. So what I did was I just picked out 6 beads from the kit. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Perfect. And I'm actually now going to kind of string this through my holes here. Okay, so you're going to go through that top hole first, and then you're going to sew through that second hole. And this will require the assistance of some pliers. The craft wire, luckily, is quite soft. Hopefully it won't break on me. I don't think it will, though. But you just want to get that nice and tightened up, so that looks pretty good to me. So at this point, I can kind of secure it just by threading it through that piece of wire from earlier, kind of going back around, and then back through the loop. So you kind of have to think of it like string, but it has a sense of permanence to it because it is wire. Brilliant. So once that's nice and secure, you can actually, if you wanted to wrap it a couple more times, by all means, please do. I'm just going to trim it off right there, and that looks really good to me. And then I've got now a nice little hole there at the bottom to attach some little baubles there at the end. Or if you didn't want to make the bracelet, you can attach your fairy charm to this, and it'd be equally as cute. Okay, remember I talked about a little piece of wire earlier that was about 4 inches? Well, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing as we did earlier with our flower components. I'm going to string it right through. Oops. You want to make sure that you have an even amount on both pieces of wire there, but you're just going to string it right through and give yourself a more robust piece of wire to work with. I also did this because a 26 gauge wire is so thin, so that whenever you start to put it with other pieces of wire, it obviously becomes a lot more strung and has a lot more stability to it as well. So here, it looks like I went ahead and strung another bead into my pieces of wire there. So let's do that. Okay, that's looking really good. I'm gonna need my chain nose pliers to help scooch everything down. Okay, just get it as good as you can into your wire there. And I think that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so now we just got to connect it to our flower component from earlier. Same process here. I'm just going to make a nice large wire wrapped loop here. I think the extra pieces of wire add a quality that looks wooden to me. And if I'm thinking of the fairy kingdom, I think of this woodland, very like, you know, just like oak trees that have been there for thousands of years. You could see all the grains and patterns in it. And so you're just bringing that sense of romance into your design, even if it's just to satisfy you and your building, whatever you're making, creating those little stories, then I think that little justification in itself is just fun. Okay, so you can kind of position the loops to face however you need it to lay correctly. Another advantage of using really great craft wire, I think. So that looks pretty good to me. I'll probably continue to kind of tweak it as we move forward here with our design. But otherwise, not bad. So I'm just going to go ahead and string this right around. Wrap it right around, I guess I should say. And then once I get enough wraps on here, I can definitely trim it back. I will say and recommend that you trim it to stagger those wires so that they kind of wrap in different directions. I cut it all at once, and that's what you should not do. Staggering the wire will actually help to mask and hide it better. But for the sake of this tutorial, I did explain why I did that though, or why I would recommend doing that. Okay, let me just make sure that this is laying correctly. Oh, that looks so good. Look how great that connection looks. Beautiful. I love that hit of wire in between. So it looks like now we can just kind of add our baubles there at the bottom. I kind of made some pre-made baubles here, but I will definitely cover how to do a quick little wire wrap loop on a head pin. So let me go ahead and connect this first. Oops. And I'm just using a standard 6mm jump ring. Beautiful. All right, to do a head pin that is wire wrapped, you'll want to string on your crystal, and then you'll just go in with your chain nose pliers, and I like to go at the very tip of my webbers. You'll want to create a 90-degree angle bend, just like that. The reason why you want to put your pliers in, so I'm sorry about that view, is you'll want to create a space for your coiling. Once you've done that, you can stick in your round nose pliers. Obviously, the closer you are to the tip of your pliers, the smaller the loop will be. The further down you are in your pliers, that loop will just get bigger and bigger. So I like to stay pretty petite with my loops. And I'm just going to work around. It'll get to a point to where I want to naturally stop because my wrist does not want to turn in different directions to make it uncomfortable for me to make my loop. So here, I just flip that wire around, and I'm going to actually change positions of my pliers. So now I have more freedom to move my wire around and meet that back to that 90-degree angle bend that I had earlier. Remember, it's all about comfort. You do not want jewelry making to be a crazy, angry process. All right, I'm going to grasp it with my chain nose pliers, and then I can either use my fingers or I'm going to use the tip of my crimpers here because it works sort of as a chain nose plier to grasp the tip of that head pin and then just coil it around as such. Very easy to do. You want to make sure that the quality of your head pin is good. I recommend any type of copper base. Copper tends to be a very soft metal. I have very high quality brass interior base for the SilverSilk findings. They are high quality and actually very soft to use because they've been annealed enough to where they're very flexible. So just something to keep in mind whenever you're doing some shopping. Okay. That flew somewhere into my office, which I'll pick up later. But otherwise, you can just use your chain nose pliers to gently twist that little end in, and you've got a perfect head pin. Wire-wrapped head pin, if you will. All right, so now you could just add that little bauble onto your design. So now I have to look for the seam inside of my jump ring here. There it is. These are actually SilverSilk jump rings, which are also very high quality, and they're virtually seamless. I mean, look at that. I can't even tell where I can't even tell where it is. So if you're in the mood to shop, some of these findings would be a great pickup, I think, to have in your inventory of stuff. Okay, so our beautiful, let me get this example piece out of the way and some of these other things. Our centerpiece is virtually done here. We just got to add in the rest of the chain and do a little embellishment on the backside. So I cut a length of chain where it is a style of necklace that I would just throw right over my neck, over my head, really. But this is close to maybe about 24 inches in length, and then double that. Oh, maybe not that much, actually, because there's not that much SilverSilk. So probably closer to about 14-ish. Not good at measuring. Probably should have a ruler out here. Anyways, that's not the point. Just do a comfortable length that you can throw over your head, if you will. I'm going to clean up the ends here just by kind of shaking out those little wire fuzzies. You can grab your chain nose pliers and just grasp those little wire fuzzies that tend to come out. This inhibits your crimping process. If you're using my findings to crimp your ends of your SilverSilk, you don't want anything in the way. You want to make sure that it is fully inside of that particular type of end cap and that it will grasp onto the chain as it's supposed to do. And sometimes these little fuzzies, they just get in the way, so you got to tell them, hey, fuzzy, get off the chain. Or just use your pliers to get them off. Oh, that was a big fuzzy. Okay, so if you've got a little ball that sticks out, just trim it back. And your wire is basically conditioned and ready to go. So now you'll want to grab your double strand end cap. These are specifically made to use with capture and pearlesque chain. So it's got little teeth inside of it to grasp onto the ball chain core. But basically, you can open these up with your chain nose pliers. You'll want to open it up just a little bit, though, like maybe 1 to 2 millimeters max. If you go too crazy with it, you're going to end up breaking your finding, and then it'll be very, very sad because you won't be able to finish your piece. So just open it up a little bit. And then string in your capture and or pearlesque chain. And you'll want to grab those pliers that we talked about earlier, the ones that are coated in Tool Magic, the wide nose pliers, because look how great those just fit right in. And I can grasp onto it very easily. It's not going to slip and slide out of my control here. So they're just perfect. So I just give it a good press. If there's a little piece of wire sticking out, no big deal. Just go in and trim it off. All right, so essentially I've got just basically a large lanyard piece here. We're going to use this for our backside. That's the exciting part, because we're always trying to figure out ways to reinvent the necklace, right? Sometimes we get bored of the same old format, and I wanted a little like decorative piece at the end of my design here. So what I'm going to do is string it right through that loop that we made earlier. And you would crimp it exactly how we did before. You would just need to, again, use a shorter piece of wire. And then I just strung my finding right through. So here's the magic. If you flip your knot down, you get this really great little love knot, which then becomes part of your necklace design. Because look, we've got all of these individual little components that work together beautifully in a harmonious way. That's very detailed, but it's not over the top because everything is in the same color palette. We're using copper throughout our design, but you get these cool little intricate pieces that, I don't know, they make a story with your design. And on top of that, we get a way to embellish the end here. So you can absolutely, let's see, I think I had something kind of picked out. I made this little component way ahead of time, and this would be just as easy to attach to the back with just a larger jump ring. So I'm just going to do that, string this on, and you'll recognize that vintage piece from the kit, and then you get some other extra little beads and goodies with it too. So now I've got a way to embellish the back of my design as well as the front. Or if you're just feeling real crazy, you could just turn the entire necklace around and wear this as a front, and then you'll have a very decorative backside. So a couple of different ways to wear it, and otherwise some really great jewelry pieces for your fairy kingdom making and or your wardrobe for the summer, well, from the spring really, transitional to the summertime. So these are all excellent designs that I hope you guys will give a try with your own materials, and or if you picked up the Fairy Kingdom kit on silversilkonline.com, that's a great place to pick up these materials as well. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. Please definitely leave a comment below if you have any questions or just want to show the channel some love. Again, you can definitely subscribe to my channel, and if you're looking for more inspiration, you can check out my Instagram. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening. I loved teaching you these projects, and I will see you again very soon. Mwah! Big hugs, and stay creative.